A few weeks ago, I was driving home and listening to the radio. It was a live broadcast from Cumbria, reporting on the 300-mile endurance cycle ride that Paddy McGuinness, the Radio 2 presenter, was doing to raise funds for the Children in Need charity. That's him at the start of the ride. Now, I now ride an electric bike to assist me cycling up the hills. But Paddy was cycling on his 1970s chopper bike with 3 gears. I tuned in to the radio on day 3 of his 5-day challenge from Wrexham to Glasgow. I listened to the moment when Paddy reached the top of Shap Summit in Cumbria. Now, if you don't know it, it's a 465 feet climb. That graph shows you from Kendal to Penrith over Shap Summit. You can see how it's going up. It's 916 feet above sea level, and it's an 8% gradient. Can we have the next slide? Oh, it makes my knees hurt, just the thought of it, and on a chopper bike as well. But I wondered if he wished his route was level with no steep climbs. At that moment, he might have agreed with Isaiah's vision in which every valley shall be filled in, every mountain and hill made low. John the Baptist, who quoted the ancient prophet Isaiah, was thinking about something deeper than literally changing the geographical landscape. He shared God's desire to change the world for the better. He shared hope when people's confidence and trust in the leaders was shaken. Tiberius Caesar was a ruthless Roman emperor and was greatly feared. His representatives of Rome, the governors of Judea and Galilee, Pilate, Herod, Philip, and Licinius, were given little respect by the people living in these regions. It was a time of political unrest, and there were many local acts of resistance to the Roman occupation of their land. And even some of the religious leaders, Ananias and Caiaphas, were thought to be in collaboration with the Roman oppressors and not trusted. John the Baptist preached his message of hope against this background of oppression, angry dissent, and suffering. There was great suffering caused by taxes. Taxes were taken for the Roman Empire, and religious temple taxes were required in Jerusalem. Taxes crippled the most economically disadvantaged in society. And if they couldn't pay them, they faced complete loss of freedom and slavery. Change was needed urgently. Some people remembered the stories of old, when Moses led the people from captivity out of Egypt, and then the time when the exiled people returned from Babylon to restored life in Jerusalem. Throughout the centuries, these stories were passed down from generation to generation, and hope in God, even if a very shaky hope, was kept alive. Luke highlighted in his gospel that God's messenger, John the Baptist, was the voice that people should tune into. John the Baptist must have preached with passion and conviction because crowds of people came to see and hear him. They left the power base of Jerusalem and other urban centres, full of noise and competing opinions. They came instead to listen to John in the wilderness, where God hushed the noise of their daily chaos. John the Baptist shared a message with great clarity. There was hope because Jesus was coming to bring transformation. John was sent to help people get ready for Jesus. He asked them to examine their own lives and take a reality check of their motives and actions. He invited them to make ethical and social changes, to be ready to live differently. No more exaltation through taxes, and start to share with the needy. They needed a change of heart and fresh ways of thinking. They needed to follow Jesus, who was coming. So in the year 2024, in the second year of the reign of King Charles III, Sir Keir Starmer is Prime Minister of Great Britain. Mr. Zelensky is President of Ukraine. Mr. Putin is President of Russia. Mr. Netanyahu is Prime Minister of Israel. And the President-elect of the USA is Mr. Trump. Reverend Jonathan Hustler is Secretary of the Methodist Conference, and Reverend Helen Cameron is President of the British Methodist Conference. Whose voices are we listening to? Where are we searching for hope? For ourselves, our family, our community, and our world. There is such a deep, encouraging promise of hope in the words that John quoted from Isaiah. When the Messiah comes, all people will see God's salvation. God is for everyone. God invites us to believe and follow Jesus. God forgives our mistakes and invites us to flourish, to live with hope because we are utterly loved, to live with hope because we believe that change can come when people choose to live in peace. Hope is daring to believe in a different ending to the story. Hope is daring to explore new possibilities. Hope is having courage to make changes in life. Hope is saying yes to God and being part of God's transformation plan for the world. Hope is being persistent in holding on to God's love, even through suffering and challenging times. Hope is trusting in Jesus' promise to be with us in this life and the next. Hope is celebrating the little and good and wonderful things in life. These angels have given me a lot of hope. You have been fantastic in coming together to make them happen. There have been over 300 made. Giving them away this Advent is a hope-filled activity. In the Christmas story, the angels were hope bringers as they brought God's messages to the main characters, to John the Baptist's father Zechariah, Jesus' mother Mary, Joseph, shepherds and the Magi. All were involved in God's restoration plan, but it meant sacrifice and change in their lives. As they faced questions, gossip, danger, and possible humiliation, the angels said to them, "Do not be afraid, because God is with you." Holding on to this hope, they persevered. Mary and Joseph got through the challenges of developing their relationship, of travelling to Bethlehem and giving birth a long way from home without a local support network. And when Jesus was born, Jesus' birth was then celebrated by the angels, who sang with joy because he was the one who would bring peace to the world. Hope is celebrating the little things, the extraordinary acts of kindness which make a difference in people's lives. I had the privilege of taking the first batch of these angels to a care home this week and taking an angel to every resident in the home. It was a very moving experience. One lady was blind and couldn't actually see it, but she loved to hold it and feel how soft it was in her hand, and that seemed to give her comfort. One person was feeling quite anxious, and so she held the angel, and we talked about God's message, do not be afraid, and I prayed with her, and for that moment it seemed to give us some comfort. And I said, and when you're feeling a bit anxious again, pick your angel up and remember, God says, don't be afraid, I'm with you. Please join me in praying that everyone who receives an angel may know God's peace and know that we as a church care. We care because we are hope-filled people working together to make the world a kinder, more compassionate place for everyone, starting by loving people who are lonely and isolated in our community. God needs us to be involved in flattening mountains of injustice, to help make the way smooth, so that people, whatever their age, gender, place of birth, or living with disabilities or illness, may have their best experience in life. Eventually, Paddy McGuinness' breathing settled, and despite his exhaustion at the top of Shap Summit, was able to talk to the radio presenter. The presenter told him that after he'd climbed the summit, over £1 million at that point had been raised. Paddy burst into tears and said he was so grateful for all the support he'd received. He thanked people for donating to children in need, and he then mentioned that there are many children who would never even be able to get on a chopper bike. They have enough challenges getting through the uphill struggle of every day, and he hoped the money would go some way to support them. This Advent, God invites us to hush the noisy distractions in our lives and search for the voices, stories, actions of hope. Jesus was born in turbulent times to bring hope and peace. John the Baptist's message to get ready for Jesus is still relevant for us today in 2024. Let us keep hopeful and believe with God things can change. May God bless us to be hope bearers to all who cry out in their suffering. May we, like the angels, also sing with joy because Christ has come and his voice is worth listening to.